Yes, it's difficult to find an investment property in today's housing landscape across the HRM that financially makes sense, but it's not impossible. If you're looking to get into the investment side of real estate but you don't know where to start, then this video is going to be a great resource for you, as I'm going to get you off on the right foot by going over all the metrics that I use to determine whether or not a property is a good investment or not. And I'm going to go over 5 main metrics. So number 1 is income, number 2 is expenses, number 3 is net operating income, number 4 is cap rate, and number 5 is monthly cash flow. And at the end, I'm going to take you through an example of what this looks like on an investment property that I currently own. But before I get into it, if you're new here, my name's Andrew Stephens, and I've been a realtor in Halifax for 9 years now. And if you're looking to be educated on the Halifax real estate market, then this is the channel for you. So go ahead and hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to book a call or a meeting with me to chat about the Halifax real estate market, or if you're thinking about trying to get into the investment property world, then you can reach out to me anytime in the calendar link below my description at a time when it's convenient for you. Okay, so metric number 1, and this one is obvious, this is current income. So when you're looking at the rents and the laundry, those are the 2 main incomes that you're gonna have. So laundry, it kind of is what it is. That's obviously a nice bonus if you have it, but your main source of income is going to be your monthly rents. Now, when you're looking at rents, there's a few main things to consider. Number 1, are they at market rent currently? Number 2, if they're not, how close are they to the market rent? And number 3, if they're not market rent, but you want to increase them year over year, with the current rent cap of 5% per year that starts in January of 2024, how many years would it take you to get these units up to the market rents so that you're maximizing your monthly income? Now, metric number 2, and this one is again pretty obvious, you're going to have to look at the expenses. So what are your expenses on this particular property? And as a general statement, here's some of the general expenses that you're going to see on most investment properties to some extent. Property taxes, utility bills such as oil, Nova Scotia Power and water, snow removal, garbage removal, management fees, and property insurance. Now, there's a couple main things I'd like to keep in mind during this expense section, and that is number 1, the property taxes for a lot of properties in Halifax, if they've been owned long-term by the same owner, are going to be extremely low. And when you purchase this and it gets reassessed the following few years, then your property tax bill is likely to go up, and it could go up drastically. So you want to make sure you account for this in your general numbers when you're looking at each property. And number 2, the utility bills. Are these currently being paid by the tenant, or are they being paid by the landlord? And if they're being paid by the landlord, is it possible to put these onto the tenant in the future, which will alleviate some of your expenses? And number 3 is management fees. Are there currently management fees on that particular property? Maybe there's an on-site super, maybe they're paying a property manager to look after the property. The going rate for these in most cases is about 10% of your monthly rent, so it does eat into your income very, very quickly, or maybe you want to manage it yourself depending on the size of the building and whether or not you live nearby. Okay, so the third metric that we use is net operating income, also known as your NOI. So to get your NOI, you're going to take your total gross income and you're going to minus your total expenses, and that's going to give you your net operating income. So this is what the building will make prior to your mortgage payment coming out, but this is the net operating income. Moving on to metric number 4, and this one is the cap rate. So the cap rate is basically the rate at what you're paying off your investment. So to get this number, this is a very popular metric that's used, by the way. And to get this number, you're going to take your NOI and you're going to divide it by the current property value. So for example, if you had an NOI of $100,000 and the property's current valuation is sitting at $1 million, you'd take the $100,000 and divide it by $1 million and then times it by the percentage, and then you would get a 10% cap rate. So in this case, that is a pretty high cap rate and not something that you're easily going to find in and around the Halifax Peninsula, but there's a lot to consider about cap rates and they do vary. So what makes a good cap rate? That's a great question. It really depends on the situation, but obviously the higher the better, because this is the rate at which you're paying down your investment. But as a general rule of thumb, in and around the city, you might see 3, 4, or 5%, and even trying to get 5% right now in the Halifax market is quite difficult. Now, if you go out more rurally, maybe if you go to Windsor or Truro or Bridgewater or something like that, you might see a higher cap rate. rate, but at the end of the day, the thing you have to consider is the future growth of these places as well. So on the Halifax Peninsula, you might see a higher growth per year than you would in Truro, but your cash flow is probably not going to be as good, and your cap rate is probably not going to be as good as well. So again, there's a lot of factors, and this is a very popular metric used to analyze investment properties. But would I say the cap rate is the be-all, end-all, the only important part of a real estate investment? No, I wouldn't, but it's something that should be very, very closely looked at. Okay, so we're almost done here, but metric number 5 is cash flow. So this is where you're going to look at your monthly cash flow of what this property is bringing in every month. So to do this, you need to factor in your monthly mortgage payment. So if you're looking at a property and you're planning on buying it, you could run the mortgage numbers with a mortgage calculator. Just make sure the metrics you're using in terms of the interest rate and the amortization are accurate, but that should give you a good indication of what your mortgage is going to be roughly in terms of a monthly payment. Now, once you have your mortgage cost, you're going to take your NOI, divide it by 12, which will give you your monthly net income, and then you're going to minus your mortgage payment from that, and that is going to give you your monthly cash flow. So obviously, the more cash flow, the better. The whole point of investing in real estate is to make money, but at the same time, passive income is taxed at 50%, so it's all relative. The thing I would look at the most is if you're looking at a long-term play, how much you're looking at making in the 20 years, not just each year individually. And again, it really depends on what kind of investment you're looking for. Maybe you're looking for short-term, something that's going to cash flow very high, so maybe to do that, you need to get off of the Halifax Peninsula, for example. But if you're looking on the peninsula as a long-term play, something that's 10, 15, or 20 years away from you being ready to sell it and to capitalize fully on your investment, I don't think you're going to be too upset with what you'll see in 20 years from now. Now, as a bonus, something else to think about is the general maintenance of each particular property, and this is going to vary substantially. Some people use the 1% rule, which would be 1% of the total value of the property is going to be your typical maintenance cost per year. Some people use $1 per square foot as a metric, and really, it is so hard to predict this based on a general statement, but in reality, each property has so many variables, and it really depends on the overall condition of the property. For example, if you have a fully renovated set of flats in Halifax that's been completely gutted to the studs in the last 4 or 5 years, there's going to be very little maintenance cost on this because everything is new and everything should be working and everything should continue to work. But if you're buying something that's run down that maybe hasn't been touched in 30 years, well, obviously you're going to have a lot more maintenance cost. So depending on the situation, you want to factor in a safe number of what you could expect each year for maintenance on each property. Okay, so now that we have all this information, let's look at a real life example. So this is going to take you through the numbers on an investment property that I own in the West End of Halifax. Okay, so again, this is a property that I own in Halifax. So these are real life numbers. And in terms of my mortgage payment, when we get there, for the record, this mortgage is from over a year ago. So I'm on a little bit of a lower rate than what you might see today if you were buying. So this particular property has rent of $2,300 in one unit and $2,350 in the other unit. So this equals $55,800 per year. Now, I don't have any laundry income coming in from this because each unit has their own laundry and it's not coin operated, so they just have that included in their rent. As far as expenses go, this property is fantastic. There's very, very few expenses. On the property tax side, we have $6,581.16 per year. And that did go up quite a bit since I bought it. About $2,000 was the increase in the first year after I bought this property. Now, if I'm looking at the insurance cost, this is just over $4,000 per year. Now, there's no oil on site, and each unit has their own water line and sewer line, so I don't pay anything for water or oil, and each unit is separately metered, so I don't pay anything for Nova Scotia Power as well. And property management-wise, I don't pay anything because I'm the one that manages this property as it's nearby where I live, and it's only 2 units, so it's not very overwhelming, especially because this is a fully renovated property, so there's not too many issues that I deal with. Now, snow removal is something else that I don't deal with on this property. This is all on the tenants. Every now and then, if it snows 30 centimeters and I feel bad, I'll get somebody over there to plow the property out. But if it just snows 5 or 10 centimeters, this is on the tenant themselves. So the total annual expenses are just over $10,500 on this property, leaving me with a net operating income of $45,210. Now, The current valuation of this property is sitting right around $950,000. So if I take the NOI of $45,210 and I divide it by $950,000, that gives me a cap rate of 4.8%, which is pretty good for the Halifax Peninsula. And the total monthly income is looking at $37.68. So this is my total monthly income after my expenses are already accounted for. And my monthly mortgage payment, again, is from over a year ago, so I'm on a little bit of a lower rate, but my monthly mortgage payment is sitting at $2,872.78. And this leaves me every month with a monthly cash flow of just under $900. So this property, the numbers, honestly, they look pretty good. This was one that I bought for a lot less. I bought it for $600 and something thousand, and then I did a huge reno, about a $250,000 reno. So then I refinanced it, pulled my money back out, and then I had a fully renovated side-by-side 2-unit property in the West End. It has parking, it has laundry. The units are 2 levels each, and they're very, very well put together. And I have great tenants, young professionals that are very, very good at paying the rent as well. So the numbers on this property are great. It's very easy for me to manage it. And it's very, very low cost to me as well on the expense side of things, which are all things that I look for when I'm analyzing an investment property. And if you're still here watching and you got any value out of this video, all I ask is that you hit that like button and you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my future content, and that'll help push this video out to more people like you who may be interested in being educated in the Halifax real estate market or some buying and selling tips. And if you're still here watching, thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it, and have a great day.